ladies and sinners. I'm so sorry about that. We had a bit of a power outage. There is lightning. There is thunderstorms in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I live in an older neighborhood where the wiring is not underground. So I apologize for that, guys. Very, very sorry about that. Anyway. What were we talking about? We were talking about Deshaun Watson, right? The Deshaun Watson case. It's getting stickier and stickier and stickier, man. It's not looking good for Deshaun, in all honesty. I just don't see how this is good for the NFL. I don't see how it's good for Deshaun. And again, where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And that's trouble. I truly believe that speaks trouble for what's going on in that situation. The Browns thought they made the Browns thought they had a good contract, a good trade going. There's a possibility Deshaun Watson doesn't even play this year. So I'll put it to you like this. When it comes to situations, there is nothing wrong. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with having sexual intercourse. There's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong and what's not looking good in Deshaun's favor is it looks as though he almost looked for 100 people in a certain time period because he was looking for different massages at different times, and that kind of stuff starts to pile up. Because as you guys know, even if evidence isn't involved, there's a court of public opinion. And right now, the more lawsuits that happen, the more that Deshaun denies what's happening, the more that bigger entities back him. I don't know, the less it just doesn't look good. So, moral of the story is this: the great Kevin Hart said, "You should always have a safe word." I agree with him, minus pineapples. I'll go with it all day, twice on Sunday. Pineapples. First of all, it's amazing fruit, and second, it's the weirdest thing to say during that time when you're having that kind of fun time. So, if you happen to bring up fruit in the middle of fun time, it's serious. Right? I get this is kind of an explicit show. We went there. But pineapples would be my safe word. Deshaun Watson's safe word as of right now should be settle. Settle! Alright? Get it figured out, man. Because you're in trouble if you don't. You just got awarded $230 guaranteed $1 million. You better figure it out. Welcome, Max, to the chat, baby. That's one of my longtime best friends. Big supporter of the show. Listens all the time. Even gives me critiques. Tells me when I suck and tells me when I did great. It's nice of him, isn't it? It's what a friend's for. So yeah, now that the Deshaun Watson situation's kind of closed up a little bit, let's talk about the guys who pay the bills. The Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. In the social media, their Twitter at SoCal Warriors, Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and Facebook Southern California Warriors. IE Sports Radio, the platform where I get to have a lot of fun. For the last 8 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we continue to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one just starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout-outs in all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on this segment of our flagship show hosted by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Larry B. The defining moment would be the flagship show. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Fan of the month, Justin Ekstrom. Actually, we're going to have a different fan soon here. I just didn't get that one. So Justin, you're still the guy. Even though you're a Vikings fan, you're still the guy for this month. Let's take a look here. On top of that, we got to give a shout out to our donors, if you will. Wait. Did I say that right? It is what it is. donors. That could be looked in so many different ways, right? 4 Patreon supporters: Bay Area Raised, M. Los Great, Key to the Gate, and Anonymous. Again, great fucking name. Anonymous. He's got the original Anonymous. Unbelievable. I just don't understand it. This guy's a legend. He needs more than just a shout out. He got the original Anonymous on the Spreaker app. Gotta love it. Yeah, so we touched base on the Deshaun Watson. I think he's getting to the point where he's screwed. I want to say that he's innocent until proven guilty, but as of right now, things are stacking up against him in the worst way. So that's never good at all. The Las Vegas Aces, talk about them real quick. They're off to a 10-2 start. Killing it, to be honest with you guys. Las Vegas Aces are killing it. Doing a great job. They went on a 7-game win streak before losing last Sunday. This last Sunday on the 5th. This last Sunday. I apologize. This last Thursday, June 2nd, against the Connecticut Sun in Las Vegas, and they finished their 4-game home stint against the Dallas Wings, won 84-78. Again, they started out 10-2. They're top of the league in WNBA. If you guys don't believe me, just go ahead and go to Mike Pat's blog. Yeah, Mike Pat put out a great blog out there. It's at Let's Wine Sports _IESR. He posts a blog on a consistent basis. He was talking about the WNBA and highlighting the teams that are killing it. And the Las Vegas Aces, I just feel like they're a hard team to beat right now, man. Like, realistically, yes, 10-2 is amazing. It's an amazing start. What's really helping them right now is they're averaging 91 points a game. Their opponent's 81. So they're averaging 10 more points a game than their opponent. They're still in the about 36 to 40% three-point shooting, 46% on their field goal percentage. Free throws have been hovering around 80%. So they're taking advantage of any and every opportunity they have. They have 12 turnovers a game. They're forcing 13. I mean, what can you say? And then Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young are still averaging more than 19 points a game. We touched base on them. I think wanted to say it was about 4 games in where we said, hey, this team is on to a 3-1 start because of these ladies, and they're killing it. When you look at the team as a whole, there's 3 players averaging more than 16 points a game. That'd be AJ Wilson, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum. So they're just killing it, man. There's just no way around it. They're doing a great job leading in minutes per game, and they're taking advantage of their opportunities. The Las Vegas Aces are off and running, and if you guys want a chance to see one of their games, take a look at their schedule. They are about to start a little bit. Actually, they have 2 games on the road. Their next 2 games are on the road. This upcoming Saturday, and Wednesday, June 15th, they will be on the road. They will be back home against the Minnesota Lynx and the Chicago Sky on June 19th and June 21st. So you ladies, or you get your tickets so you can go check out the ladies, man. They're killing it. UNLV Rebels. Their baseball team won the Mountain West this year. We've talked about that numerous times on the show. One thing I don't like is I feel like they got screwed, guys. I feel like they got screwed out of the tournament. For you folks that don't quite follow baseball or college baseball, when it comes to RPI rankings, essentially it's a rating percentage index is what that stands for, and it usually it's for ranking sports teams. I don't know, based on wins, losses, strength of schedule, how that works, right? So the wins you have, obviously the number of wins you have, the kind of wins you have based on who you play, and the number of losses you have, and then conference does matter. It begs the question: did UNLV get screwed, or did they have a light schedule? It could be a mixture of both. I'll be honest. I think it was a mixture of both. But when you have a team that, and this is something that really stood out to me, UNLV, for what it's worth, was an offensive machine this year, and according to the article written by Ed Graney, Las Vegas Review-Journal, UNLV was an offensive machine, quote, leading the NCAA in hits, doubles, and batting average at .331. The Rebels scored 530 runs, drove in 490 runs, and had a ridiculous on-base percentage of 41%, when you see that, listen, I understand the competition factor of it, but baseball is different than other sports, right? When you have statistics like that and you're consistently hitting the ball, you can't tell me that kids in the SEC are throwing 10 miles per hour faster with more movement than kids in the Mountain West. Baseball is different because it's a little more, it's a team sport, but it's a little more individualized, all right? And there's a balance, okay? So you can't tell me that kids in the Mountain West are averaging 89 miles per hour and SEC guys are averaging 98. It's not realistic. It's not happening. There's just, you can't tell me that the UNLV baseball team couldn't continue these stats in a tournament setting. I firmly believe it. I think they're good. I think they're a good baseball team. They obviously have the statistics to show it. They won the Mountain West by a large margin this year, and they should be rewarded by getting a chance in the tournament. But because of RPI, because of the ranking of the schedule, it's kind of screwed them. It's not their fault the Mountain West is terrible in baseball. It's really not. But they took advantage of it. They played some games. They played against some good teams. They got a few good wins, but just not enough. So essentially, in the RPI, to get in the tournament, you want to be around 82. They're ranking UNLV around 115. That sucks. Yes, I get it. That doesn't help. But at the same time, it's like, what are you going to do? I would still put those stats, the on-base percentages, the number of hits, I would still put those stats up. If they're number one in the nation, guys, not in the nation, number one in those stats, that has to stand for something. They're leading the NCAA. We're not talking about the Mountain West. They're leading the NCAA in those categories. And that translates. It means they're getting bats on balls. They're getting guys on base. And they're advancing those guys. They're driving in 490 runs. This is just crazy to me. To think that UNLV couldn't compete is just dumb. So, in my opinion, I think UNLV got screwed. It's not because we're a Vegas show. I just think those types of statistics, when you look at it, those are what matter. Okay? If they went undefeated, I don't even think it would have mattered in this case. I think they still would have been in like the 90s as far as RPI because they're in the Mountain West. And that further brings up this discussion. And I really like some opinions from the Peanut Gallery, right? Is there a huge gap? Is the gap growing between Group of 5 and Power 5? Right? Ryder the Athletic, UNLV Rebels writer, in general, believes that there's a gap growing. And it's almost too evident not to notice anymore, especially with the transfer portal, the NIL. Some of these guys are able to get out of here, get out of these smaller schools, the Group of 5 schools, and go to bigger colleges. I think that the recruiting moving forward, especially those young athletes in high school that are 4- and 5-star guys that are highly touted, they're going to start getting better NIL deals as it goes on. Because as any market happens, no different than the NFL, MLB, the bigger contracts continue to grow because the market continues to grow. The same thing is going to happen with recruiting. It's going to get to the point where, I don't know, man, you're just going to see schools. What I'm worried about is that there are specific sports for schools that are not going to make it. And it's because of the way the transfer rules, the NIL situation set up. The better athletes want to go to Power 5 now. Before, they weren't afraid to go to Group of 5 because they knew, hey, we can get some playing time. I mean, look at how UCF was stacked in football not too long ago, right? You saw quite a few guys from that school make it to the NFL, and they're doing pretty good things, okay? They were getting athletes. They're just not getting those same athletes. They're not going to get those same athletes anymore, and it's sad. It really is. It tells you that the NCAA has moved to a more business model. It's no longer about college sports. And honestly, this is kind of separate from the NCAA because the NCAA says, hey, we're still going to take our money. I think the NCAA knows it's a foregone conclusion. They won't be a part of this whole situation in probably 10 years' time. I'm almost calling that now. I don't see the NCAA staying. I feel like a lot of these bigger schools are getting so big that they're going to have their own league. They'll be able to move away from the NCAA and just essentially call themselves a semi-pro league. They'll never be able to compete with the NFL, but they'll essentially just call themselves a semi-pro league. It'll still be college football. They'll still be getting scholarships. They'll still be raising money. They'll still be making money. They just won't have the NCAA governing it anymore because at this point, the NCAA has just done a terrible job. I mean, look at their stance over not paying players over the last few years. They'll do anything to not pay players. It's ridiculous. But as long as they get their paychecks, everything's fine, right? I don't know. It's just hairy. I think it's a slippery slope. And a lot of people, and I'm going to bring this up a little bit because I think it was a great conversation piece. Nick Saban and the stuff that's going down between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. I'm not going to pick a side because I think both of them just kind of sound like bitchy egos, right? But I will say this about Nick Saban. Say what you want about him. Maybe you have a lack of respect. Maybe it's F Nick Saban in your mind. I'll say it like this. He's the greatest college football coach we've ever seen. He's the greatest salesman we've ever seen. He's one of the better evolutionary tails that we've ever seen. The guy used to run double tight almost every single play and run the ball right down the defense's throat. And then after it stopped working and the game evolved, he evolved. He's now running spread. He's now running a 3-4 system that really looks like a 3-3-5, and he has linebackers that can blitz at all times or run in coverage. Just the speed. He's changed his philosophies and evolved his philosophies over and over. And then that doesn't even count how woke he's been about the direction of college football for years. I'll say it like this. When college football was looking to add the playoffs, there was one coach that was really, and listen, maybe there were different coaches. We just didn't get a chance to hear them because they're not as popular as Nick Saban. But Nick Saban came right out and said, I don't think it's a good idea. And it's not because he's Alabama. He's at Alabama, guys. He's going to be in the running for the national championship game every single year. He wasn't worried about Alabama. And that's something I think people really need to open their eyes or open their ears and eyes and listen. This guy is trying to better the health of college football. And I believe his suggestions are correct. Call me old-fashioned. Listen, I think the players should get paid. I think these players are getting screwed. These colleges are getting millions of dollars. These players are getting a $100,000 education. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't equal out. I 100% agree with that. I do. But I think what Nick Saban has said over the years has been right. And I think right now we're heading down a path where college football is going to weed itself out. Let me put it to you like this. There's an old interview, YouTube it, say Nick Saban's stance on the college football playoff. He'll tell you the exact truth. You can call it whining, you can call it bitching. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it just coincidentally they didn't happen to make the national championship that year in the BCS. But what I can tell you is Nick Saban straight up came out and said, no BS. He said, if you guys do this, you're going to devalue the remaining bowl games. You are going to less incentivize the bigger athletes from wanting to play in those bowl games. I 100% agree with that. What's happened? Since the BCS was basically removed, we still have those championship games, but once the playoff was once it was installed, once it came to fruition, it devalued those other games. Those games that we used to legit stay up for before Christmas and stuff like that to watch. We don't really do that anymore. We know it's not the big cheese, man. Yeah, the teams and the matchups might be fun every once in a while, but look at how many athletes are sitting out now too. That's growing on a consistent basis. People say selfish athletes. Why are they selfish? They know their team's no longer in the running for a national championship. You could legitimately play before New Year's Day if you were an undefeated team and have an opportunity to share a national title. You can't do that anymore. You can't. You're either in the college football playoff or you don't have an opportunity to win a natty. The BCS and the college football playoff has devalued bowl games. There's not as much money. Sponsors are not paying as much money for those bowl games. There's not as many perks. So if you're an athlete, there's a possibility you could be drafted. Why would you play? Why would you play? The transfer portal. He was against it. Not because of Alabama. Alabama's going to continue to be a top 3 recruiting team every single year. He's not worried about it. He's the University of Alabama. He's Nick Saban. He's done nothing but win games, win titles since showing up. But he looked at people right in the camera, and said, if you guys do this, all you're going to do is help teams like us. And he's been 100% correct. You got kids who aren't competing. They don't feel like they're competing. You got coaches that are consistently leaving, so it's allowing players to leave when they want to. Go find the best deals. It's not bad for the players. It's good. But it's hurting the smaller teams. It's hurting the group of 5. Now we have NIL. That's self-explanatory, guys. You can say whatever it is you want. The better teams, the richer teams are going to get the most players. Simple as that. You know, there's rumors out there that every one of those new Texas A&M recruits were getting like basically an oil well named after them. And after every drum that's sold out of that oil well, they're getting a percentage. I don't know how true that is. It's just rumors. But what I'm saying is, when you have stuff like that going on and you're a recruit, how do you not follow the money? And Nick Saban wasn't worried about Alabama. He wasn't worried about Alabama at all. He knew they'd be fine. As long as he's there, they'll be fine. But the sport's changing. And I think because of that, and because of exactly what he's warned us against over the years, there's a huge gap growing between Power 5 and Group of 5. And now with NIL, it's only going to be worse. So teams like UNLV, we want them to get better. We want Vegas to prosper, especially at the collegiate level. It's going to be really hard for that to happen moving forward, especially with the way college sports have really amassed the amount of money they have, and they're just not distributing the wealth as well as they should. And I mean, that's that. I don't know what else to say on it. Maybe you guys disagree. I'd love to hear you guys' comments. Get out in the chat. Maybe get on me on Twitter. Message me on Facebook. You guys know my name. Like, just tell me your thoughts on this. But I think there's a huge gap growing, and I think Nick Saban was right. Call him egotistical, call him a prick, whatever you want, but he wasn't wrong. He wasn't worried about Alabama. He was worried about the sport. The sport's it's diminishing. It's diminishing itself, in my opinion. When we get back, guys, we're going to go to break here. When we get back, in general, we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to talk about their coaching search. Some believe that Barry Trotz is the golden goose to land, in the NHL in general for coaches. Some believe that he already has a deal in place with Las Vegas with the way Vegas is learned. When we get back, we'll talk about that.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Wait a Minute Show.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Indeed.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' to NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. It's another Tuesday evening filled with events, love for our sports in Vegas. And folks, I want to give you guys a heads up. If there's another outage, I apologize. Thunderstorms are going crazy here in Nebraska. I know we had that a little bit of a break in the earlier part of the show. Again, I apologize for that lack of professionalism there. And we'll do what we can to prevent that, but it is what it is. An electrical surge is what it is. And, thank God I have one of those surge protectors so my nice little gaming rig and everything doesn't get all hurt. Oof. Would never want that to happen. That'd be bad news. So we've had a lot to talk about today so far. We started with just Deshaun Watson. I think he needs to settle. I think he needs to find any way he can not to extend that situation. The Las Vegas Aces are crazy right now, man. They're starting out 10-2 to start the year, and they are surging, man. They have about a 10-point difference in points scored against, points scored on them, which is great. UNLV, we feel kind of got screwed. Talked a little bit about the Group of Five and the Power Five gap that's growing, and now we're going to kind of get into what's going on with Barry Trotz and the possibility he could be the next Golden Knights coach. I mean, it's been long believed that Barry Trotz would be the number one guy. He'd be the golden goose out there. He's a Stanley Cup winning coach. I want to say, and maybe I could be wrong. If Adam's still listening, please chime in, man. Give me some ideas or your thoughts. But when it comes to Barry Trotz, it's just like, I think he's one of the only coaches that's ever won a Stanley Cup, and literally that following offseason, that same offseason that he won a Stanley Cup, he found another job. I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen a championship coach kind of move on after winning at a certain place. Maybe he was just really tired of the Washington Capitals, but he was moved over to the Islanders. They greatly improved. Barry Trotz is the top guy. We've said that for weeks on this show. You guys know my stance on that. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. If it's not Barry Trotz, Bruce Boudreau, man. I think he's perfect for this type of team, this roster, these guys that are pretty decent size. They skate well, and they like to play on the puck. They love to play in transition. That's something that Bruce Boudreau has always been really good with. But with that said, I think the focus is on Barry. And just 7 hours ago, Jesse Granger with The Athletic kind of posted in his mind, he said, the former Predators, Capitals, and Islanders bench boss, headlines a strong group of free agent coaches, and could be at the top of the Golden Knights list for potential replacements. And then he followed up by saying, a few people in the league have suggested to me that there could be a deal in place already with Barry Trotz and VGK. ESPN's Emily Kaplan said on May 28th. Just knowing the way Vegas does business, but we'll have to see where Barry Trotz lands before the rest of the chips fall. In my opinion, this would be a home run hire. This would be huge for the Golden Knights. You already got, and it has to work in my opinion, because the way that things have gone down, the way that the Golden Knights have done business with two strong head coaches that won 62% of their games, took your team to the finals twice in 5 years, for that matter, the first 5 years of your team's existence, and you parted ways with them because you wanted to get better. Barry Trotz, to me, has to be your only way of moving forward. Like, in my opinion, the Golden Knights don't do this unless they know or have an idea that Barry already had major interest and that they were players in the Barry Trotz sweepstakes. Okay? Again, Stanley Cup winning coach. He really brought out Ovechkin's skill over the years. The Islanders looked much better over the last few years with him on the team, and the Predators were surging. And in title hunts after title hunts for a while, he happened to leave there just before they won their title. I would say that was 1 or 2 years before the Capitals won theirs recently. The lone title he has on his resume. In general, Barry Trotz is the best coach out there. And if this is true, if Emily Kaplan from ESPN is correct, there's a possibility that he already has a deal in place, and that the Vegas Golden Knights already have the best coach in free agency, one of the best coaches in all of the NHL on their roster. Let's cross our fingers, but we have to wait to see what kind of pans out, because it sounds like he's already talked to the Winnipeg general manager, the Winnipeg Jets general manager, and that's a big deal. The Flyers, the Red Wings, the Stars, they could all throw their hat in the ring as well. But the Golden Knights, they should be the best team or the most favorable team, win now team for a coach like Barry who's in his 60s. So that'll be interesting to watch. Let's definitely keep tabs on that. With the Raiders, guys, a lot of movement, a lot of subtle movement for that matter. That's been kind of their theme. The Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels theme this offseason has been the subtle movement, with the exception of Devontae Adams' trade and the signing of Chandler Jones, one of the better pass rushers in the league since 2012. The Raiders have been very low-key this offseason, signing value. One thing I can tell you guys is this coaching staff, for that matter, has gotten immensely better, okay? And they added to it, just today when they signed Matt Edwards. Matt Edwards has been with the Tennessee Titans for the last few years as a pass rush specialist, basically. He's an outside linebackers coach and a special teams coach, but his big thing was pass rushing. That was his emphasis. And something that Tennessee did very well over the last couple of years is rushing the passer with Harold Landry and Jadeveon Clowney and other names for that matter. But their interior pressure is what's really been impressive over the last few years in Tennessee. And something tells me that this Raiders coaching staff is really hitting on all cylinders. Not to mention there's the Mike Vrabel ties, okay? We can't forget about that. Mike Vrabel is a former Patriot. He's a former Bill Belichick disciple, coached with the Texans for a little while, successful defenses. That's how he got his job in Tennessee to begin with. So the Patriot way is continuing what it is. It's merged west to Las Vegas, but adding this coach just tells me that the ties are strong. And if he's being hired truly, like this is his legitimate position, I've never heard this before, pass rush specialist. They legit hired a coach to be a pass rush specialist. I've never heard of that before, which tells me they have a real emphasis. They know that they have young guys that they want to develop, whether it's on the interior or the exterior. Remember, you got Malcolm Kuntz on this team still. You do. You got Malcolm Kuntz on this team. You went out and you paid for Tyler Fickrell. Kyle Fickrell, right? I think that's a big deal. They know they have young guys that are really needing to mold and grow. You still have Chandler Jones. You have Max Crosby, who's the young stud that you just paid. This dude knows he has great edge pressure, but adding Neil Farrell and this guys, it feels like there's like 10 to 12 defensive linemen on this roster, which is great depth, and they could all start at any time. They could all rotate at any time. Meaningful rotations are huge in the NFL these days. You can't have your best players on the field the full game, especially when offenses are really doing a good job of trying to stretch 65 to 70 plays. That's a lot of running around for big dudes, okay? So you have to have a good rotation, and this Raiders D-line, although they don't have a ton of studs, they're very deep. They have great size, great versatility, and it's going to make a huge difference. So I think the coaching hire is excellent. The effort to focus on the pass rush is huge, considering the Raiders have been one of the worst pass rushing teams for almost over a decade. Remember, guys, this offseason we saw an article printed, I think it was by NFL.com in general, NFL.com and NFL Network, that the Raiders were voted as the worst defense in the last decade. A lot of that is they're not rushing the passer well. And a lot of that is they just can't seem to keep points off the board. And a lot of that is they just don't force turnovers. If you don't do those things, those three things, you're in trouble. And that's what has to happen in order to keep the Raiders moving forward. So the fact that they hired a guy to legitimately just focus on pass rushing technique and styles and adjustments is great. They hired Rob Ryan, a longtime NFL assistant, son of Buddy Ryan, brother of Rex Ryan. They're all defensive gurus. They hired him to be a linebackers coach this year. Not to mention you have, Patrick Graham coming in with his defense, and literally the only thing good about the New York Giants the last few years has been Patrick Graham. Simple. Like, legitimately. The only thing good about the New York Giants the last couple of years was Patrick Graham. And he's now your DC. He's known to adjust. He's known to adjust week to week. He's got a very simple but hey, these guys run fast type of system. But the best thing is he puts his best players on the offense's best players. And we haven't seen that in a Raiders polo in years. We haven't seen a coach do that in a Raiders polo in years. Josh McDaniels is the same way. Why do you think New England had such great success over the years? They identify weaknesses on the opponent's team and they attack them, whether it's offensively or defensively. They're the best in the league at doing that. We now have half of that damn coaching staff, including an offensive coordinator that has been one of the best, maybe a top 3 play caller the last 15 years in the NFL. He was a highly coveted coach. He's now our head coach and our offensive play caller in Josh McDaniels, who in my opinion has done nothing but just strike gold so far this offseason. He's been very humble. He's been very open, right? He's acknowledged his mistakes. He's been letting us know he's still learning. He's been letting us know, hey, even though I still have a lot to learn, I've already learned a lot. I learned a lot from Bill. I love Bill. I have great respect for Bill. He put time in me, and I'm not going to let that go in vain. Like, that's something that I really appreciate out of Josh. And he knows, listen, if I would have come to rebuild, that's the case. I came here because it was the best opportunity available, and Derek Carr's here, and this is a win-now football team. So we should all feel good being Raiders fans. We should all feel good. Raider Nation should be jacked in Vegas right now. The hashtag Vegas Life should be going crazy, and we should just all be happy with the direction this team's going. It's a tough division. This team isn't quite there yet. And as we talked about last week, the Raiders now have $25 million in cap space because they cut Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski. Right? They were designated post-June 1 cuts. We've been talking about that since the beginning of the show, right? The very first show. We knew that money would show up at a later date that would come crucial when the offseason is drawing near, right? Because OTAs are going on right now. Literally, camp starts mid-July. Like, fall camp starts mid-July. Mid to late July. These guys will show up for their actual legitimate practices, and then we're going to have our first games in August. The Hall of Fame game, for that matter, is the Raiders versus the Jaguars in Ohio, in Canton, Ohio. So we're about a month and a half away from like fall camp starting. We're about 2 months away from the first game, a little less than 2 months away from the first preseason game. We should be excited, man. The NFL's right around the corner. Something I think the Raiders really need to do is focus on continuing to better the roster. You have $25 million in cap space. And you just can't miss. You're at a point now where you can't miss. You have to make sure you're spending the money the right way. And you're continuing to build this roster. Just because you have a young roster that's been reformed and retooled does not mean that you can't continue to add talent, okay? There's guys out there. So with that said, we've talked about my top 3, and it continues to change on a week-to-week basis based on who's available and what it seems like we're seeing from the OTAs in itself. So I'll say it like this. The biggest weakness on the Raiders football team right now, and we've talked about it for weeks, is the right tackle position. In my opinion, Darrell Williams is the guy that I would go out and sign to start at right tackle. But, and I say this, it seems as though every OTA practice, Alex Leatherwood has been getting the most snaps at right tackle. I believe that this staff thinks that Alex is young, he's on a rookie deal, and now's the time to try and get the potential out of him. It wouldn't surprise me if he was one of those Nick Saban guys that Bill Belichick circled and thought, hey, maybe if he's available in the second round, I'll draft him. It wouldn't surprise me at all, right? The issue with Alex Leatherwood is not his skill level. Okay, he had a bad first year. Remember, Rodney Hudson was gone. Your all-pro center that led your offensive line was gone. He was traded away to the Arizona Cardinals for a third-round pick. You then also parted ways for a fifth-round pick, Gabe Jackson. All right, so you lost your all-pro center and you lost your repeated, by the way, multiple-time Pro Bowl guard, Gabe Jackson. Both of those guys started your right side. They commanded your right side. So you put a rookie in with a rookie center who is still developing, a right guard who tore his ACL the very first game, and a right tackle that was just learning the game, man. He doesn't know anything. Not to mention you were putting him in one-on-one situations because there were not tight ends there to help Alex Leatherwood to begin with. A young rookie tackle. If you're a team, what are you going to do? You're going to attack the rookie tackle, right? Absolutely. A young rookie tackle is going to have a hard time. I think there will be a big jump. You're going to see massive improvement in Alex Leatherwood this year. I think this staff believes that. You could see on social media, the man's been taking workouts seriously. He's much leaner. He hasn't lost weight. He's put on muscle, and he's much leaner. It's not college anymore where you have a training table and guys trying to force feed you, and as long as you're bigger and fatter than the guy across from you, you can push him down the field. That's not how it works in the NFL anymore. You have to care for your body and the longevity, the long term, and build for speed. Alex Leatherwood looks much better. He looks leaner. So while Darrell Williams is my number one target still, right, I don't believe they go right tackle. If he gets signed, great. Egg on my face, I'll take that. I just don't see it happening, guys. I don't see Darrell Williams coming. I don't see them adding another tackle. I think they like what they have. Also, remember, we have unrestricted free agents that we went out and signed. Undrafted free agents. Undrafted free agents that were signed. Let's take a look here. So you still have Alex Leatherwood in the rookie deal, right? Excellent. That's what you want to see. You also re-signed Brandon Parker to a one-year, $3 million deal. Nothing special. Good backup money. Some people think he might start. I think they're full of crap. I think Alex Leatherwood's the guy, okay? And then in the undrafted area, you added a massive man out of Utah. I think they're calling him Bam Olaseni. I think his full name is Bamadeli Olaseni. He's tackle out of Utah. 6'7", 339 pounds. The only downfall with Bam is that he's 26 years old, but it's because he went on a mission. He's a Utah kid, Utah grad, played left tackle. He was a monster. When you watch his film, he shut down the number 5 overall pick. Yeah, you heard me. Kayvon Thibodeau, he shut him down in that game. Very little damage was done. Actually, in both games that they played. Remember, Utah beat Oregon twice this year. And a lot of that had to do with Kayvon Thibodeau, the number 5 overall pick in this draft this year. And you can ask the guy listening, man. I was guessing draft picks like it was nothing. Okay, I knew where these guys were going to be. Bam Olaseni not getting drafted is an absolute crime. And the only reason why that didn't happen is because he's going to be 26 years old. He went on a mission trip, came back, played college ball, and he honestly dominated. He's a more mature guy. Don't be surprised if he doesn't get reps. Don't be surprised if this guy isn't starting in a few years. Okay? This is a good player. This is a big dude. You could plug him in at right tackle. His issue right now is he needs to lean out and get better. He might not see reps this year, but he's going to develop under the new offensive line coach. Just so you guys understand, this guy has a lot of room to grow even though he's 26. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body. He'll be fine. If we need him for meaningful reps, he's there. If we don't need him or we don't want to lean his way because his development's not there, you still have Brandon Parker backing up right tackle. I think you have 3 guys right there that could truly develop into being dominant right tackles. So I don't see them getting a right tackle now. So my number one target would be J.C. Tretter. You guys heard it first. Center, J.C. Tretter. All-pro center, J.C. Tretter. You have $25 million in cap space. Go get that man. Okay? Defensively, I'd probably look at Kevin King at corner, right? Ndamukong Suh is my number one target on defense, a defensive tackle. Even though he's going to be 36, he's still dominant. He hasn't been injured since 2015. He's missed 2 games in 10 years, for that matter, for injury. People worry about his age. He's still dominant, man. Any defense he plays on gets better. Any defense he plays on, the linebackers eat because he takes up blocks and he creates lanes for the linebackers. I'm all for Ndamukong Suh, especially with a very deep defensive line that can ensure that we get him meaningful rest so that he's there for meaningful games in the late part of the season. That's all I care about. Ndamukong Suh wouldn't have to play a first half of the year. It wouldn't matter to me as long as he's ready to go that last half and give us his all. Because he's still dominant. He's still huge. He's still powerful. And yet you still have young guys like Neil Farrell and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. That's my bad. But the young man that we drafted out of the Volunteers this year. Let them learn under Ndamukong Suh. Let them learn behind him. You brought John Hankins back. Bilal Nichols. Stacked defensive line room. Facts. Bring in Ndamukong Suh and you're fine. Okay, so he's my number one target on defense. Number 2 would probably be Kevin King because I'd like to see another corner, a veteran corner that has starting potential added to the team. Even though there's been value corners added to this football team, I'd still like to see a little more talent. Okay? And I'm very sorry, guys, again. We got to start thinking about closing the show here. I apologize. We had the cutouts because of the storm, but hey, we're all on a schedule. So I apologize for that again. That sucks. I didn't mean for that to happen, but thunderstorms are what they are, and we had an electrical surge. So we'll close out the show. Listen, a lot of room for potential for the Raiders. A lot of good things are happening for the Raiders. And we have to be positive this offseason. Okay? They have 4 preseason games set. From what I saw, it's Jacksonville. We'll end up closing with Miami and the Patriots. It looks as though we'll have a joint practice before that last preseason game number 4. We'll have a joint practice with the Patriots where the starters will probably scrimmage, and then they'll get a look at all those young guys for the Week 4 preseason game. I thought that they were going to 3 preseason games, but I'm pretty sure because the Raiders got the Hall of Fame game that they got a 4th preseason game. Not to mention it's really good because you have a new staff, you have a new playbook, new schemes. It's never a bad way to go. So Raiders are on the up and up. Las Vegas Aces are surging. The Golden Knights look like they're honing in on their coach of the future, and man, things are just looking bright for Vegas sports. MLB team's probably on the horizon. We'll get more on that, as the weeks come. But hopefully the A's kind of finalizing something when we see an MLB team. It'd be awesome. And then one of these days, and we know NBA will show up too. This market's just growing real fast, guys. We got to be happy about being a Vegas sports fan. It's really fun. With that said, guys, those are my improvements for the Raiders. Give me your thoughts. Again, get at me on Twitter. Get at me in the chat. We're all about the Raiders. We're all about Vegas sports. Tell me what you think the Raiders can do to improve before the season starts. A lot of room for improvement. There's already been a lot of improvement, a lot of room moving forward to do some improvement. And then remember, they also have $25 million to sign their guys. Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow have to be extended. Period. There's no way around it. You can't pass up on not signing those guys. They're integral pieces for the future, especially if you're in win now mode. If you want to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years, those guys have to be healthy and they have to be paid. All right, folks, you guys know how it is, man. It's Tuesday evening. Get at us every week, Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Live healthy. Love, peace, and hair grease.